I'm Zulekha Chaudhary, and I run the Al-Ghazi Theatre Archive. And I'm just going to do a small walkthrough of the exhibit and talk a little bit about it. So let me just give you a little background to the Al-Ghazi Theatre Archive and the Al-Ghazi collection of photography, which is where the material in this exhibition are from. The Al-Ghazi collection of photography is a collection of 19th century South Asian photography and also now more contemporary South Asian photography. And essentially it's a photographic archive and is housed in the same building as the theatre archive, we are about 5 years old. And our material is from post-independence modern Indian theatre, mostly. It is in the form of photographs, it is in the form of a lot of print material, like reviews, brochures, scripts. We have a lot of theatre journals. Of course, we have audiovisual material as well, interviews and such like. The interesting thing is, I suppose for me, to be in the same building with another archive. And this exhibition is really about a dialogue between these two archives, between these two collections. The title of the exhibition is Spectatorship and Scenography in the Archives. And the reason for doing that was, of course, these are the theatre terms. Scenography and spectatorship, of course, is not just a theatre term, but the idea was to think about what happens if we kind of take these two terms and kind of apply it more broadly also to this photographic collection, and what does that begin to propose. Because in this, there is a question of something that is constructed, which is scenographic. And then, of course, there's somebody who is looking. I have spent a little time with the collection of photography, not a lot of time. I'm a theatre director myself, and some of my own work is based on material from the collection of photography. And what was interesting to me, and what has been interesting to me, is that any photograph, to me, has two things that are very common to theatre. That is people and place, and then there is somebody looking at that. And so for me, this is about a proposition of looking at any photograph as a moment of performance. That something happens, it is captured, and then it is seen. And so my proposition with this exhibition was, what does it mean to consider construction, something that is constructed? Because performance is always between what is real and what is not real, and if one brings that to photographs, how does one kind of look at images? Because images are interesting things. They are like documents, And so there is this question of that they ask to be believed in a particular way. But what happens if one proposes construction as part of it? Which is that it is something between what is real and what is not. It is something between fact and fiction. It is something which has to do with the question of believability, and where do all these things sort of begin to play in. The photograph has, there is the photographer, there is the subject, there is a landscape or place, and then ultimately there is a viewer. And what actually happens between all of these participants in a way? What is constructed? To think about it as to think about a photograph as performance to me means that this opens up for questions of fact and fiction and so on, the question actually of history and how does one think about history. What is to be believed in about what we're told. And in this, of course, archives are very important because what is brought into an archive, what is left out of an archive, how does one read what is in the archive itself, is quite a key and central thing. And so how does one, when one looks at a photograph, it is, you're looking at a moment after the photograph has been taken, so the event has passed. So this positionality of who looks at it, when they are looking at it, and the relationship of these two things with the event itself begins to me to open up the questions of history in a way, larger questions of history. I'm just going to slightly just gesture to a couple of things and talk a little bit about why they're in the exhibition. So I'll begin actually with Murray's work. The images are here. So Murray took photographs of the Taj, as you can see, of the Taj Mahal. His biography is up there. He was a surgeon. And what is interesting to me is the question, like with any 19th century photography, the question of composition and what that actually means. What does it mean to look at something that is so carefully composed? To me, these are staged images, in the sense that they are composed, in the sense that at that time, for the photograph to be taken, there had to be a moment of stillness. It wasn't just candid. Everything had to hold still for a moment. And so, what does that actually mean when one thinks about how are we to read this image? The idea of landscape is a very photography and landscape is a very important part of, was a very big part of the whole colonial days, the colonial experience. Photographs of landscapes were taken to almost take, I think, to make the world into a picture. And I think that's a very significant thing, that it can be caught, that it can be represented in a particular way. And then who sees these images? And actually, what does this then mean about what is real and what is not, for example. To me, these images, Murray's images, are interesting also for the composition, which is of course the Taj, which is a part of the landscape. There is also, he takes the photographs with also sort of crumbling ruins. He's taking them as well, so it's not that he's leaving them out. So there's a kind of a sense of a disintegrating landscape, a kind of something that is preserved, which is the Taj. And then there are these, and then there is the Yamuna, there is the river itself. And then there are these little figures in the landscape, which are very small, but they're part of the image. And of course, they were taken for scale, but they were also part of the image because, as you can see, they're all quote-unquote natives. They could have been also the photographer's assistants, but they were not. They were natives. And this I find quite interesting because in such a composed image, you're getting quite a sense of, actually, if this was for a European base, then it is quite a sense of other. I have a small quote about landscape that I wanted to read out a little bit by W.J.T. Mitchell, who writes, "Landscape conceives itself precisely and simultaneously as an expansion of landscape understood as an inevitable progressive development in history, an expansion of culture and civilization into a natural space in progress that is itself narrated as natural. And I've been thinking about it, and I actually thought about it quite a bit in thinking about actually Kush's images. Here one can say with these images that, the picture is constructed of this landscape. Lots is left out. Something remains. When I think about this quote and I think about Kush's work, what is interesting to me is that this is a landscape also which is in itself constructed. And that I found very interesting in thinking about this quote and this question of what is the imperial gaze, and does that or does it not as an idea onto the landscape actually still continue in our moment today as a kind of a sense of in quite a similar colonial manner in which one kind of works upon the landscape. The human being works upon the landscape. It is not a natural landscape, it is a constructed landscape. And now, before I ask Kush to talk a little bit about his work, I want to talk about two things. One is that along with landscapes, there was, of course, ethnographic photographs that were taken. There's a very interesting album which is in a series of 3 albums, which is it's an album from the Western India. It's called Western India. And one of the albums is it's an ethnographic album of people who are staged against backdrops that suggest, what their work is, and kind of who they are. And what is really interesting is that it is called Characters and Their Costumes, which I thought was really interesting in thinking about, actually it's very precise into the idea of construction. It's a very theatrical term. And again, this was a kind of the photograph and photographic equipment, as I said earlier, is a very important part of the colonial enterprise. And then there is, of course, the Peoples of India album, which is 1868 to 1875, which is also trying to capture. So there is a whole section that I looked at, which is People of Delhi, which is again a classification, which I just want to gesture to the India Minute camera, because these are photographs taken in villages. These are for passports. And this sort of linkage between characters and costumes, the album called Characters and Costumes, going to People of India, and sort of referencing this, just was making me think about this question of, the question of citizenship actually, which is what a passport photograph is about. And that it is quite interesting to think that also this kind of looking, there are so many similarities then between Peoples of India or costumes and characters and this, which is much more recent, this is far more recent. And again, to think a little bit about, just like with Kush's images, this question of, and the colonial gaze is interesting to me. I mean, I also work with law in performance, and one of the interesting things for me is to have understood also the history of law, which is, which our current laws have so many traces of actually the original Indian Penal Code, which came into being in 1860. And so these traces going from our colonial past into our contemporary, and what remains as a kind of central, almost in a way, impetus, is quite interesting. And it was particularly interesting, as I said, going from People of India to the India Minute camera and passport photographs, really to think about actually how kind of, I think one has to really think a little bit more carefully about how we arrive at moments and questions of citizenship and what does that mean? Because, to think today if we are, which is, we all know where we are today here, and to think about who is and is not a citizen, and to think then about the photograph and what part it plays in that in a kind of a classification. The classification doesn't seem to have stopped. Okay, so I'm going to ask Kush to speak a little bit about his work, and perhaps it would be good, Kush, if you could begin from, since actually your work for me was actually in dialogue with Murray, also for the question of what is staged, and also of course for the Yamuna. Maybe you could begin from there. Just to say that Kush is the current awardee of the Theatre Photography Grant, which is a grant that he established in 2020. And so this is his project is
So the project or the assortment of images that we see here is a part of it's a project called Yamuna Local Stories. And the project, I'll just start with the entry point and the point of departure for this project. So I was looking at or interested in talking about the Yamuna River as an entity which exists in the city and also in the current Anthropocene that we exist in. At the same point, what was the point of departure for me were the already existing popular images or the popular representation of the Yamuna River. And for me, I was much more interested or in a way interested in were these indexical scientific practices which become a conjunction between image making and performance in a certain way. And the other thing which I'll talk about is the entry point into the project. So I got hold of an archive, an open source archive, which were basically research papers. And these papers, for example, take back to, for example, the time period of 1980s, 70s, 2003, etc., etc. And these were research papers specifically of surveys, which were done around the Yamuna River. By around, I mean, for example, the floodplain region of the Yamuna River and on the Yamuna River. So these research papers kind of became an interesting understanding to have kind of indexical understanding. For example, there are these very generic arguments like the Yamuna River being polluted, etc., etc. But to what extent, to what existing, or is it something which just exists? So for me, that was something which was very interesting. And the other aspect of it, or the connection which I built with, for example, Murray, would be the aspect of the photographer being the surveyor. For example, the act of seeing, but looking at a landscape to kind of build up an understanding or to view, but with a sense of understanding something. So for me, that was something which was there, but at the same time, my practices or my understanding of the photographic medium, for example, what Zulekha was talking about, Murray's work, were very reflexive in a certain sense. And I wanted to kind of keep these layers in the images, but at the same time make it like a maze. Or, for example, the act of viewing becomes like a maze where I kind of put these hints for people to kind of just look and kind of question what they are looking at. For example, the first image that we see is of this bridge which is just being constructed next to the Yamuna River, and it has been 3 years since this bridge has been they are making attempts to construct a bridge. Because of certain reasons they've never constructed it, and I felt it would be so interesting to like just make a model of this truss bridge, which is the kind of a bridge they are trying to construct, and place it just in front of the camera. So an assortment or a sense of a staged image becomes an entry point for me into the work or the act of viewing. But at the same time, what I try to also do is to put these certain hints to, for example, make people question. And for me, this aspect of or this understanding of trust goes both ways. For example, it's completely in a way interesting for me when people kind of feel that the bridge has been constructed or it is present there. For me, there's a trap. So, I mean, if you fall into the trap, I'm completely fine with it. And in a certain sense, I was also looking at these scientific processes or the surveys, which were very specific or where the act of making images become like a very important aspect of evidentiality with images. For example, the entire act of, for example, something like the Secchi test, which is a very which is a calibrated test where the act of viewing the or immersing the Secchi disc into the river and simultaneously viewing it, and specifically at the point where the Secchi disc disappears is the point of disappearance of Secchi disc, and the length of that, a certain kind of calibration or a repetition of this process with a time period gives us an understanding or an indexical understanding of the depreciation or and build up an understanding of what is happening to the river in a certain sense. And the other aspects and what we see here also are these assortments which I have tried to build up and in a certain way raise these questions. And these are, I would say, very complex questions in terms of what we see and how images are not evidences. For example, latching upon to something which Zulekha was also saying about this aspect of the point where the image is made. What time is the image made? What is the time at which we are looking at the images? What is the time at which kind of build up a context around these images? For example, these two set of images comes from the most basic process called contour mapping, which is the most basic process of surveying, where we try to understand the contour or the unevenness of a landscape. And for me, what was very interesting for this particular trajectory was this idea of how inch tape, being in air, kind of becomes of an act which happens at a one specific moment, where the inch tape is being held by surveyor 1 and the other end is being held by the surveyor 2. So there's an act of holding which happens at one particular moment. But when we look at images, the surveyor 1 and surveyor 2 are basically both the same people. So, like, what are images? Like, how are we looking at images kind of become very important. And then the last, I think I wanted to end or kind of give away a very specific or a very direct or use very direct indexes of images. For example, I was talking about the representation of the river and representing the river with the surveyor being in the images next to scales of these bridges kind of become like a very important entry point, or for example like a departure to someone like Murray's work, for example. So yeah, I mean, these images are...
Can I ask you a question? So from what I've understood, the research material you use, the archive that you've used, actually there are no images in those?
Yeah.
So in a way, these images work off of almost the script of that archive. And I think what's really interesting is that, in Murray's case, for example, he's the photographer and he's looking at something, a landscape with someone in it. And yes, of course, it's a surveying of a sort. What is interesting here is that Kush is the photographer and the surveyor. And you can see, the surveyor is also being looked at. And I thought there's something really interesting about this kind of a staging. And do you want to talk about why, maybe just to end here, talk about why you chose yourself and not someone else?
Yeah. So, I mean, as I also mentioned, so if we kind of also bring it down to the most surface level, I feel these research papers or the methodology specifically mentioned in these research papers, or for example, markers of these sampling sites also become like a script for me. And there's always a scope for improvisation, like what happens in the theatre piece also. So a lot of images in a certain sense, or this script gave me that scope to improvise. Why I specifically chose myself as the one who is to be viewed, also because I was very, for me the idea of representing someone or looking at the idea of a surveyor inside these images became very important, and I was very critical of this idea of how do you represent someone, and what for me became very interesting was that getting into the shoes or like getting into this get up of a surveyor kind of becomes like an entry point to putting these images, and this act kind of can be presented in a much more, that aspect of trust can get developed, like how theatre also. We have these, for example, how someone dresses up in a certain way to
So
make
is it the question of believability?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, are these self-portraits or is somebody having?
What I was very interested in, I would say some of them are self-portraits, some of them are time-based images, and some of them are images which I have made with someone. For example, you see like here I use the air shuttle release cable to kind of make images. But that also happens at one survey, at like a replacement of one survey to kind of give a gist to what is the placement of the other survey. So kind of these questions are more important for me.
Before we move on, I just want to talk a little bit about actually Agra Bazaar, which is Habib Tanveer Naya Theatre production. The reason why I chose it was actually because, of course, it linked because I was thinking about the images in Murray's photographs. And then I discovered that actually, so the play was performed first in 1954, just post independence, and it was, it's if you read the short bio, which is over here, no, over there, of the play, it's a play about people, the people of Agra. And that is is actually set in 1871, which is actually very, like a couple of years here and there from when Murray's images were taken. So actually when I was looking at these figures, I was, like this is somehow more fleshed out. Who that person is for me fleshed out in this way. In thinking about it, and of course the fact that this was taken in late 1860s to early 70s, and this production was done in 1854. So we're just kind of post-independence, and that is also why the play was made, to talk about ordinary people and their life. And it seemed like an interesting thing to think about who that person is, and actually the time period of the play is pretty much the same time. An interesting fact about the 1954 production which was done in Jamia, was that it also had not just actors but real people from Tughlakabad and Mukhla. There were animals on stage, and so it was populated with performers but with also real people. And I thought that it's also a question of how one thinks about when one has a theatre archive, what do you look for in that? Very often it is, for example, outside or around the event, outside the image, because the images of a theatre event are almost always of the performance itself. One has very few traces and records of, for example, this fact that there were not just actors in the play, there were people from real life in the play. And what does that actually mean? How does one think about this play or the act of theatre when one also knows this kind of information? Because again we're down to this question of what is real, what is not real, and what does that mean anything at all to the actual production itself? What did it bring to that? And what does our knowledge of that bring to how we view this image or any other material? And so, as we move to, which is really primarily for me about the act of viewing. So there are photographs of the Delhi Darbar, which happened in 1911, taken not as an official, not officially, but by an amateur person, photographer. And what does it mean to view the spectacle which it was from within the crowd, which is actually best seen in this set of images? You know, to really understand that somebody is looking from the crowd to the event itself. Just to think about, yes, what is it to look from at a photograph taken from almost this side, from almost where we are, to look at the spectacle in that manner. And then this is, to me, kind of very much in relation to this set of photographs from the Janam archive. And actually, for me, is very close to that's the photographer. And there he is underneath drinking a lot of beer, ale, which I thought was a great photograph also. I think since I've been speaking with Janam for some time and looking at the archive for some time, I felt in a way Janam's material spoke to actually what I am extremely keen on doing with the theatre archive itself, which is, of course, the theatre archive is about the histories of theatre, and that too, I would say, is contested histories in the sense of what is inside and outside the canon. Because again, with any archive, it's who has material which comes into the archive. But I think particularly for me, when one looks at theatre images or theatre material, and Mala and I have had conversations about what should be digitized, and I'm saying everything. I think, how does one look at the theatre event or a theatre photograph in this case to see what is around and outside the actual performance, let's say, the actual event that is meant to be photographed, or is these photographs are of Janam's 1st January event in Jhandapur every year from 89 and continues till now. So it's 33 years. And so it became a good way to think about what if one doesn't look at so much the event that is being photographed, but what's around it. Because one of the things that is key to me is actually, can one look at theatre material as sort of primarily historical source material? So it's not just talking about a theatre history, but it's talking about one can look at economics through it, or political science and politics through it, or one can look at it anthropologically. But how does one begin to push outwards towards doing that? And so this is 20 images selected from 33 years. They're all in and around, to begin with, around the site of Dr. Ambedkar Park, which is where they perform. And this is a model of Dr. Ambedkar Park as it exists now. It's a model kind of so that one can reference what is happening around actually this park, which has changed through time, which is I would say the scenography has changed through time. And what does this actually mean? What can we read into it, even in terms of spectatorship? Because when places change, people in those places also change, and therefore people coming to see Janam's work have changed. So I'm just going to begin with. I'm very lucky to have Mala here from Janam. This is Comrade Rajesh, who's a trade union person, and this is Tikender Pawar, who's joined us to talk a little, who's an urban planning expert, And to just kind of open up the conversation a little bit about actually how we one can what these images can provoke us hopefully to think about, which is beyond these, actually beyond these images themselves. So Mala, maybe I can begin by asking you about how has Jhandapur changed for Jana? It's been 33 years.
You can actually go into Jhandapur even before 1989 and then 1st January, and that entire area has changed. मतलब आप अगर तस्वीरों को देखें तो उसमें साफ पता चलता है कि न सिर्फ जिस जगह पे हम लोग नाटक कर रहे हैं, लेकिन उसके इर्द गिर्द सिर्फ बिल्डिंगें बड़ी हैं वो नहीं, कौन सी बिल्डिंगें बड़ी हैं, किस तरह से बड़ी हैं, क्यों बड़ी हैं, वो अगर हम देखें तो उससे पता चलता है कि ये पूरा इलाका जो है एक तरह से बहुत सारे बदलाव के सीरीज ऑफ बदलाव से गुजरा है। मुझे लगता है कि मैं एक बात ज़रूर शुरू में कहना चाहूँगी कि आफ्टर ऑल हम झंडापुर गए क्यों। सबसे पहले हम शायद 80 के दशक में किसी एक टाइम पे गए थे जब वहाँ बिजली भी नहीं थी, तो हम गए क्यों। दरअसल जननाट्य मंच हमेशा ऐसे इलाकों में जाता है मार्जिनलाइज लोगों के बीच में, जहाँ पे हमें लगता है कि एक्चुअली कामकाजी लोग, उनकी जिंदगी, उनके संघर्ष, उनके दुख, उनकी पीड़ा, सब कुछ हमें देखने को मिलता है, वो हमारे नाटक के अंदर आता है। हमारे काम का यही मकसद है, तो ये हमारे लिए एक चॉइस है, एंड इट्स अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट चॉइस दैट व्हाई वी गो देयर एंड not anywhere else. So I'm not saying that everybody should go there. I'm simply saying Janam goes to such places, not just this industrial area, but many other industrial areas of Delhi and other places also. So that choice, I think, is there, over here, and I think that choice has also made us go there relentlessly for 32 years, and that has also impacted the going there has also impacted the people of that area. And how something which was a garbage dump, like Dr. Ambedkar Park, from a garbage dump when we used to perform outside, has now been transformed into a pretty okayish, big ground with a Ambedkar Bhavan, which can, it's like a community center sort of a thing. So that is something that perhaps he will speak about. Rajesh, आप बात करेंगे कि बदलाव के बारे में जो बात हो रही थी?
ये जो जननाट्य मंच के साथी हमारे बीच में जो एक घटना घटी थी 1989 में, उससे पहले से ही जाने थे। और जैसा हमने मालूम बताया है कि वहाँ पर मजदूरों की क्या स्थिति है, उसके ऊपर ही वो अपने नाटक तैयार करते थे, उनकी जिंदगी के रहन सहन देखते हुए, और किस तरीके से वहाँ पर काम करते हैं, उनके सामने क्या क्या परेशानियाँ कारखाने के अंदर हैं, और फिर जहाँ उनका रिहाइश है वहाँ क्या दिक्कत है, तो उसके ऊपर उनसे जानकारी लेके उनके ऊपर नाटक बनाना। अभी पहले नाटक एक मशीन बनाया, मशीन नाटक इतना प्रचलित हुआ मजदूरों के बीच में, क्योंकि मजदूरों की जिंदगी के ऊपर बना होता है, किस तरीके से इंसान की मजदूर जो है मशीन बन जाती है, और वो रात दिन काम कर रहे हैं, उनकी ज़िंदगी के लिए कुछ भी करने की तरफ से नहीं। तो उन चीज़ों को जो है नाटक में जननाट्य मंच के साथी अपनी कला के माध्यम से वो लोगों के बीच में जब रखते थे, तो मजदूरों को लगता था ये हमारी बात कही जा रही है, और मजदूर बहुत आकर्षित होते थे। तो फिर वो उस तरीके से मजदूरों का जुड़ाव जननाट्य मंच से होता चला गया, और साहिबाबाद क्षेत्र के अंदर गाजियाबाद में बहुत बड़ा बदलाव हुआ है। शुरुआत में तो बड़े बड़े कारखाने लगे, बड़े बड़े प्लाट, बड़े बड़े उद्योगपतियों का खबर कर लिए, 2 कारखाने भारत सरकार के भी वहाँ पर लगे, एक रक्षा मंत्रालय का है, एक सौर ऊर्जा का है, और वहाँ पर ट्रेड मजदूर बनाए, बड़े संघर्ष किए। उसके बाद वहाँ तमाम कामयाबियाँ भी हासिल की, लोगों को मिनिमम वेज नहीं मिलता था, और तमाम उनकी दिक्कतें थी।
इस तरह के
बदलाव इस तरीके हुए हैं कि जो खास करके बदलाव हुए हैं 1991 में जो नई आर्थिक नीति आई, उदारीकरण नीति की वजह से ये पूंजीपतियों को छूट मिली सरकार की तरफ से कि आप कहीं भी दूसरा उद्योग लगा सकते हैं। सरकार की तरफ से आपको वहाँ पर तमाम सुविधाएं दी जा सकती हैं, तमाम टैक्स में छूट दी जा सकती हैं। तो ये जो बड़े बड़े प्लाट कब्जा कर रखे थे इन्होंने दूसरे राष्ट्रीय राजधानी क्षेत्र के अंदर, वो एरिया आ गए थे। तो एक तो जमीन की कीमत बढ़ी, जमीन की कीमतें बढ़ी, तो उन्होंने यहाँ से दूसरे क्षेत्रों में जाकर के मध्य प्रदेश में मालनपुर का एरिया है, वहाँ चले गए। इधर आपके उत्तराखंड में रुड़की के क्षेत्र में और हरिद्वार में, इधर हिमाचल में बद्दी में, तमाम जगह इस तरीके से यहाँ के उद्योगपतियों ने जाके नए नए कारखाने डाले। वहाँ एक तो यहाँ पर ट्रेड यूनियन आंदोलन मजबूत हुआ, जो मजदूर यहाँ जागरूक हुए, जागरूक होने से मजदूरों का जब ट्रेड यूनियन मजबूत हुआ तो तमाम मजदूरों ने अपनी जो है वेतन भत्ते बढ़ाए दबाव देके और तमाम सुविधाएं हासिल की। तो उद्योगपतियों को लगा कि इनके ऊपर हमें ज़्यादा खर्च करना पड़ रहा है, इसीलिए उन्होंने दूसरे जगह पर, क्योंकि यहाँ पे मजदूर उसी तरीके महंगा हो गया ना, तो फिर उन्होंने क्या किया कि दूसरे स्थानों पे जाकर के वहाँ सस्ता मजदूर मिलेगा। तमाम सरकार की तरफ से टैक्स छूट है, जैसे उत्तराखंड के 10 साल तक बिजली का ये बहुत सस्ती बिजली मिल रही, उत्तर प्रदेश में बिजली बहुत महंगी है पूरे हिंदुस्तान के अंदर। तो इस तरीके से उनको रियायती मिली सरकार की तरफ, उससे यहाँ से तमाम उद्योगों ने यहाँ से बड़े पैमाने पर जो नई इंडस्ट्री कराना चाहते थे, अपने बिजनेस बढ़ाना चाहते थे, वो लोग दूसरी जगह बिजनेस चले गए।
तो फिर कौन?
और उसके बाद में नहीं, इनके भी रहे कारखाने यहाँ, लेकिन जो तरक्की कर रहे हैं, बढ़ रहे हैं कारखाने, विकसित हो रहे हैं, तो उनको यहाँ बढ़ाने की बजाय वो दूसरी जगह ले गए। ट्रेड यूनियन के आंदोलन में मजबूत की वजह से दूसरी जगह ट्रांसफर करके ले गए। उसके अलावा फिर जो महंगी जमीन हो गई तो उन्होंने क्या किया, वो जमीनें बेच कर जमीन बेची। उस पर जो है अभी पर ये हालात हैं कि छोटे छोटे प्लाट, पहले तो एक बिल्डिंग होती थी उसमें काम चल होता था, मशीन लगती थी, अब क्या किया मल्टी स्टोरी बना दी, नीचे कोई कारखाना चल रहा, उसके ऊपर कोई है, उसके ऊपर कोई है, यानी एक ही प्लाट के ऊपर कई कारखाने चल रहे हैं। और एक एक कारखाने में पहले मान लो 100 आदमी काम कर रहे थे, आज उस प्लाट के ऊपर कम से कम नहीं तो एक एक प्लाट के ऊपर हम आपको बता रहे हैं, जैसे एक हमारा जो साइकिल कंपनी है, वहाँ पर उसके बगल में प्लाट था 56 नंबर, आज वहाँ 35 मात्र मजदूर काम करते थे, गैस सिलेंडर भर जाते थे। आज वो कारखाना में 56 प्लाट लगे, उस प्लाट के ऊपर 56 कारखाने लगे हैं। उस 56 कारखानों में एक एक कारखाने में 100, 200, 400 ऐसे मजदूर लगे होंगे, तो आप बड़ा 1000 की संख्या होगी। तो इस तरीके से मजदूरों की संख्या बढ़ी है, लेकिन मजदूरों को वो सुविधाएं पहले मिला करती वो नहीं मिल पा रही, क्योंकि बेरोजगारी भी भयंकर है बड़े पैमाने पर। और जो पुराने कारखाने थे जिनकी बंदी हुई जिनको यहाँ शिफ्ट भी कर गए लोग मालिक, तो उनके लोग जो बेरोजगार हुए तो उनको नौकरी देके नए लोगों को ज़्यादा नौकरी दी जाती है। तो एक तो बेरोजगारी बढ़ी, उन लोगों ने तमाम जो है रेहड़ी पटरी और तमाम इस तरीके के दूसरे कामों में लोगों ने काम शुरू कर दिया कि कुछ न कुछ रखो, बेचो, किसी दिन के परिवार को गुजारा करो। तो एक बदलाव होता चला गया। दूसरे महंगा प्लांट होने की वजह से जो वहाँ जमीन का जो बदलाव किया गया, उसमें बड़े बड़े होटल, कॉलेज, प्राइवेट कॉलेज, स्कूल कॉलेज बनाए गए, तमाम जो है बारात घर बना दिए गए, लोगों की शादी ब्याह के लिए वहाँ पैसे वाले, चूँकि पड़ोस में तमाम VIP कॉलोनी बस गई, वसुंधरा है, इंदिरापुरम है, सूर्यानगर है। तो अभी इन लोगों के लिए कई जगह तो उस तरीके गए नहीं, तो इन लोगों ने क्या किया, वहीं पर खरीद के और ये बड़े बड़े माल बना दिए, रेस्टोरेंट बना दिए। तो इस तरीके से वहाँ पर भू उपयोग जो है उसमें बड़े पैमाने में बदलाव हुआ है। और आज वहाँ पर तमाम कारखाने जो चल रहे थे, उन कारखानों की ज़मीनों पे हम समझ लिए 1/3 कारखाने बंद करके उनमें इस तरीके के दूसरे बिजनेस शुरू कर दिए गए, और सरकार भी उनको पूरी छूट दे रखी है, जबकि वो प्लाट केवल उद्योग लगाने के लिए है। लेकिन उसके बाद चूँकि सरकारें ऐसी नहीं हैं, वो पैसा के बल पर कुछ भी करना, वो उसको बदलते चले गए और आज तमाम वहाँ पर दिखते हैं। लेकिन वहाँ पर विकास काफ़ी हुआ, जो मजदूर आंदोलन चला और जननाट्य मंच के साथी हमारे उसमें लगातार उनका सहयोग रहा, क्योंकि कोई भी हमारा आंदोलन होता था ट्रेड यूनियन का तो जननाट्य मंच के साथी जरूर आ जाते। वो उस आंदोलन को कैसे और मजबूत किया जाए वो अपनी कला के माध्यम से उनके ऊपर एक उनको नाटक तैयार करते हैं। फिर उस नाटक का मंचन पूरे क्षेत्र के अंदर होता, उससे तमाम मजदूर आकर्षित होते थे। तो इसी तरीके का हल्ला बोल नाटक बना था। वो नाटक उसी तरीके का बना हुआ था कि मजदूर अपनी मांग को लेकर लड़ाई लड़ते हैं, संघर्ष करते हैं, धरना प्रदर्शन करते हैं, और जब मालिक फिर भी नहीं सुनता है तो वो फिर हड़ताल के लिए हल्ला बोल देते हैं। तो वो उस तरीके का नाटक था, इतना जोशीला नाटक था, जो उससे तमाम वहाँ उद्योगपति जहाँ वो नाटक होता था बौखला गए, तमाम लोगों ने उद्योगपतियों में दहशत थी। तो उसी दौरान में जो ये नाटक वहाँ झंडापुर में हो रहा था, जो काम दिखाई दे रहा है, बिल्कुल एकदम ये तालाब था, जो ये जगह है ये तालाब था, वो कीचड़ भरा हुआ, ऐसे गंदा पानी, क्योंकि मजदूर बस्ती थी, सारे लोग कूड़ा कबाड़ा सब वही डालते थे, पानी बरसात में भर जाता था। तो वहाँ पर कोई व्यवस्था नहीं, कच्चे रास्ते थे, सब गलियाँ थी। हम लोग तो वहाँ नौकरी करते थे, उसके बाद में वहीं पर उस रहते थे ना, तो हम लोग आना जाना, क्योंकि छोटी छोटी दुकानें थी वहाँ से राशन पानी लेना, तो ये सब हम लोगों से रोजाना का वहाँ देखा हुआ रहता था। तो वो गलियाँ जो कच्ची पड़ी थी, पानी निकासी का कोई साधन नहीं था, बिजली नहीं थी, कोई रास्ते नहीं थे बने हुए, बस ऐसे जमीनें भी इसी तरीके से लोगों ने, यहाँ के जो निवासी थे उन्होंने ऐसे, कितने लोगों ने रजिस्ट्री भी नहीं की, ऐसे कब्जा करा दिया कि उस समय ले लो। हमारे भी तमाम लोगों ने इस तरीके से लिया वहाँ, क्योंकि उस समय सस्ते में मिल जा रहे हैं कि रहने का कुछ भी बंदोबस्त हो जाए। तो उस तरीके से जब रहने लगे, उसी दौरान जब ये घटना घटी, जब 89 में जो वहाँ पर बिल्कुल गेट के बाहर में वहीं पर किराए पर जगह थी जहाँ पर खड़े होकर नुक्कड़ नाटक हो सकता था, वो जो नुक्कड़ नाटक हो रहा था हम लोग ऐसे घेरा लगा के खड़े हुए थे। तो उसी दौरान पूंजीपति तबके के लोग थे, उनके कारखाने कहीं चल रहे थे, वो लोग जो है जुलूस निकाल रहे थे। उन लोगों ने जो हमला किया, हमला में हमारे साथ कामेश्वर राजू इतने घायल हो गए, वो अपने साथियों को बचाने के लिए करके जान की बाजी लगाती। हमारे भी कई ट्रेड में साथी, वो सब साथी लगे, उनके सबके तमाम लोग सर पट गए, तमाम हुआ हमला, क्योंकि उनके साथ हथियारबंद लोग थे। हमारे लोग तो निहत्ते थे, तो हम लोग तो जिससे नाटक करवाते हम लोग थोड़ी वो था कि उस तरीके कोई हमारे ऊपर हमला कर देगा। वो यदि वैसा कुछ पता होता तो हमारा ट्रेडमिल इतना मजबूत था, हम जवाब भी दे सकते थे, लेकिन उस समय हम लोग तो अपने उसमें लगे हुए थे। उसी समय वो चूँकि हथियारबंद थे, सबने हमला किया, और हमारे साथ ही हमारा पड़ोस में ही कार्यालय था, उन सबको बचाने के लिए तमाम कलाकार थे, लड़कियाँ थीं, उनको बचाने के लिए हम लोग श्रद्धा आश्रम सबको लेके वहाँ गए। तब तक उन्होंने एक और मजदूर था राम बहादुर, उसको उन्होंने गोली मार दी, उसके बाद वहाँ गोली 4 गोली अब्दुल मच गई, और श्रद्धा आदमी बाकी लड़कियों को उन्होंने निकाल नहीं दिया। हमारा कार्यालय जो है उसमें छोटी छोटी दीवार थी उसमें, तो उसको जो है उस दीवार पे बाकी लोग तो पीछे निकाल दिया, आसपास घर पे ये सब चले गए, लेकिन खुद स्वयं जब तक उन लोगों ने पीछे से हमला कर दिया। उसमें वो इतने बुरी तरीके से घायल हुए कि आज वहाँ के मोहनगर ले गए, हमारे साथ में जाके थे, मोहनगर से यहाँ लाया दिल्ली के अंदर अस्पताल, यहाँ पर आकर के, लेकिन वो उसमें माहौल ऐसा था कि तमाम मजदूर अपने साथी के लिए कुछ भी करने को तैयार थे। उसी समय पर ये जो है चारों तरफ शासन प्रशासन सब इतना अलर्ट हो गया। कांग्रेस की सरकार थी, बूटा सिंह गृह मंत्री थे उस समय, और वो जो थाना इंचार्ज हमारे वहाँ थे उनको भी उसी दौरान भी सस्पेंड किया गया, पूरे थाने के ऊपर कार्रवाई हुई, क्योंकि सबने लापरवाही किया था। उसी दौरान पर जब ये घटना घट गई तो तब लोगों को पता लगा कि हमारे देश से हमारा कितना महान कलाकार चला गया, जो हमारी जिंदगी के लिए ही रात दिन वो हमारे जिंदगी के ऊपर जो है एक नाटक बनाते थे, खेलते थे, और हमको उत्साहित करते थे, हमारे आंदोलन को आगे बढ़ाने में हमेशा रात दिन एक किए हुए थे जननाट्य मंच के साथी। आज हमारे मुख्य साथी को ही हमसे बदमाशों ने छीन लिया। तब से जो है हमारे लोगों ने इतना 2 दिन बाद वहाँ पर जाकर के हमने माला ने वहाँ पर जाके खुद आप समझ सकते हो उसमें हालात क्या रहे होंगे कि जिस परिवार में इतना बड़ा हादसा हो जाए, मेन कलाकार चला जाए, वो कलाकार साथी फिर दोबारा से उसी जगह पर जाकर के उस जोश खरोश के साथ उस नाटक को पूरा करना और वो करना, तो आप देख सकते हैं इतनी भीड़ हो गई थी कि मकान छोटे छोटे कच्चे थे, उनका वो स्थिति थी, उनके ऊपर इतना जोश लोगों में था। और खास करके अड़ोस पड़ोस में दलित बस्ती है, तो वो सब के सब बहुत गुस्से में लोग थे। तो इतना बंदोबस्त फिर शासन प्रशासन की तरफ से किया गया था, रातों रात वहाँ रोड बना दिया गया, पक्का डामर रोड बना दिया गया कि वहाँ दूसरे दिन वो नाटक होना है। ऐलान हो चुका था, ऐलान कर दिया ट्रेड यूनियन की तरफ से कि यहाँ पर उस नाटक को पूरा किया जाए। तो रातों रात पक्का रोड बना दिया गया, जहाँ कच्चा बिल्कुल मिट्टी का।
तो आप वो बोल रहे थे कि उसी के बाद भी
और उसके बाद ही ये जो है ना इतना बदलाव वहाँ पर हुआ है कि तमाम वहाँ बिजली की व्यवस्था, पानी की व्यवस्था तमाम, क्योंकि हमारे आंदोलन से वहाँ के लोग जुड़े और एक पहचान जो जननाट्य मंच के माध्यम से हमारे ट्रेड यूनियन को वहाँ मिली, उसका लोग वहाँ जनता के ऊपर वहाँ की इतना असर हुआ कि वो लोग जब भी हमारा कोई आयोजन होता है तो भारी संख्या में आस पड़ोस के गांव के तमाम लोग, बस्तियों के मजदूर बस्तियां हैं पड़ोस में, कड़कड़ है, जिंदापुर है, साहिबाबाद है, महाराजपुर है, प्रहलादगढ़ी है, ये सब मजदूर बस्तियां हैं। सब वहाँ से तमाम मजदूर इकट्ठा होकर जुलूस में जोश में सब चले आते हैं। और ये कार्यक्रम लगातार, क्योंकि जननाट्य मंच के साथ ही समय समय कब क्या हालात हैं, सरकार का किस तरीके का हमला है मजदूरों पे, किस तरीके से जनता का के ऊपर हमला हो रहा है, जनता की जरूरत की क्या आजकल आवश्यकता है उनको, तो उन मुद्दों को लेकर के समय समय पर जननाट्य मंच के साथ ही अपना जो नाटक तैयार करते हैं, हम लोगों से भी राय मशविरा करते हैं कि इसमें और क्या जोड़ा जाए और क्या हो सकता है, हम लोग भी सुझाव देते हैं कि हालात के अनुसार ही हो। तो उन हालातों में हमारे साथियों रात दिन आज भी लगे हुए हैं और उससे हमारे ट्रेड यूनियन आंदोलन को भी बहुत बल मिला है, तभी आज हम लोग खड़े वहाँ पर। नहीं तो जो नई आर्थिक नीति और आई है उसके बाद से मजदूर बड़ा बचाव मुद्रा में आया। पहले मजदूर में लड़ाकू क्षमता होती थी, आज तो माहौल बदला हुआ है। जब पहले क्या होता था, मालिक नहीं बात मानता था, मजदूर हड़ताल पे जाने को तैयार ही नहीं था। आज क्या है, आज तो मालिक ने स्वरूप बदल दिया है कि इतना उत्पादन पहले से करवा के रखते हैं कि ये कुछ दिन हड़ताल भी कर ले मजदूर तो उनको ज़्यादा फर्क नहीं पड़ता है। तो मजदूर को भी सोचना पड़ता है कि कौन से माहौल में कब हड़ताल करें, दूसरे आंदोलन करके दबाव बनाने का ज़्यादा प्रयास होता है। और लास्ट में हमारा हथियार है, हालांकि सरकार भी उसको कोर्ट व्यू से बैन करना चाहता है, लेकिन उसके लिए भी हमें आंदोलन करना पड़ता है और लगातार हम लोग कर रहे हैं। हम अपने आंदोलन को छोड़ नहीं सकते और जिसमें अहम भूमिका हमारे जननाट्य मंच के साथी निभा रहे हैं। आज भी जितने भी हमारे कार्यक्रम होते हैं, कोई भी हमारा आंदोलन होगा, हम जननाट्य मंच के साथियों से सहयोग जरूर लेते हैं और ये हमेशा हमारे साथ कंधे से कंधे मिला के खड़े रहते हैं। उसी का नतीजा है आज हमारा आंदोलन मजबूत है और हम वहाँ पर डटे हुए हैं और आगे भी हम डटे रहेंगे। ये हमारा उम्मीद और हमें भी उम्मीद है जननाट्य मंच के साथी हमारे कंधे से कंधा मिला के जैसे पहले चलते रहे हैं वो खड़े रहेंगे। हमारे साथी की कुर्बानी बेकार नहीं जाएगी। हमने जो साथी मसाल जला के हैं वो मसाल हमारे जला के रखेंगे। हम हमेशा साथी कंधे से कंधा मिला के हमारा आंदोलन रहेगा।
Thank you. Maybe this is, a moment to ask you about how, one of the things we spoke about was sort of this question. We spoke about two things. One was this question of the resettlement of people from the city to different parts of the city. So maybe in order to get a broad sense, of course, it's not just Chandrapur, it's elsewhere as well. And this sense of how people are pushed out of centers. The other thing also that maybe we could go into as well, since we don't have that much time, is to talk a little bit, as we did, about within the city of ghettoization. You know.
Okay. So I think the performance that was made by Gemma and created when this happened is very synonymous to a major disruption that is taking place in the overall city landscape, from the planning process. And there's a very famous quote that I was in the review of cinema, so I can share some very funny anecdotes. Who decided? So I thought maybe once I related, I was articulated. I thought I'll build this. But it took too long for me to relax. And no, there's someone else who's playing the shots. So I just come to that. This famous proverb is that beautify the city and criminalize the poor. Okay, so just control now. But this has generally been a concept that we find the best. In India, it's not just like that, where you push the poor to the fringes or peripherals. Here, even within the city, you find large pockets where this ghettoization has taken place. And what Rizal Jameen, particularly our Delhi, is censored about Muslim ghettoizations. She says we must see from the oppressed, perspective, not just particular community ghettoization. So every city has a specific specificity. Every city is like this town that I come from. I always say it's a reverse metamorphosis of a population because I am one of the oldest municipality, 1851, the Britishers, in Southern Valley. And then we took over and we reversed the process of urbanization. But it's a long story. Quite short. So, but then you find cities and towns which are very new. So, like Chandigarh was completely Peruvian model stuff. So, every city has a specificity. But there's certain, if I have to bring in some kind of generalization. So, post 90s, there's one thing, the 3-4 things that happen simultaneously. The first thing is that the role of the cities, it got transformed. And the cities were asked to move from just being managers to entrepreneurs. So what does that mean? It means that cities have to become like an entrepreneur, attracting investment. And that's what I find in these photographs. Where does the investment happen? So land is your biggest asset. So monetize the land. And therefore you find massive changes taking place in land laws. So this building probably, and of course all this is post-90s I find, but this is a very stark period. So land monetization. Where very Modi mills are born, where your cotton mills are born. And at the same time, the second generalization I would say is sharp industrialization is taking place. So you have a larger, what Vijayaji was just explaining. So you have a larger working class, but the large production base is shifted. So you didn't have 10,000 workers marching out, reclaiming their spaces in the cities. That was like marginalized, substantial. So that was also commensurate to marginalization, not just of the politics, but not just the economic, on an economic paradigm, but also the political paradigm. That's why massive, marginalization, where you had the working class colonies, they were hardly any representation, even in the municipality. I remember in Jalandhar, you always had some 4 or 5 councillors from Bihar. I could never imagine Jalandhar and Ludhiana, because they were representing those working class. We had to do large pockets, reclaim the spaces. It was like, I wouldn't say it's completely gone, but that. So that's the second thing. The third thing is, the planning process was completely taken over, in the sense that, for massive accumulation of capital. That's how I put it. And that's what a funny anecdote I wanted to share. It was 6 months in advance, so we had 5-6 consultants coming out. So one was sanitation, another one was mobility, and the third one was city planning, development. So they said, we don't know how to plan cities. Let me plan the cities. We said, okay, fine. And we said, we don't have the money to pay. Don't worry, we'll take the money from the center. So there was this nexus. So the bottom line is the push or technocentric solutions. And these technocentric solutions, instead of pro-people solutions where you have a participatory role, alternate to that, you have a technocentric solution, for example, metro. Now, metro, I just came back from the same place that I think I shared about 120 hours. A worker who's getting what 85% of your working class in Delhi is getting 10,000, 12,000, can't afford that. And I've seen the rise bicycle in Delhi. So people commuting bicycle or bus, I mean, it's a great need for the women. So all those technocentric solutions, mobility, very essential. If people have to move now, garbage, sanitation, you have user fee concept, which was never even heard of. So you have waste to energy plants. So like every small element of city planning was there, so technology will provide a solution, which also meant that human pressure on people, and therefore people are pushed to the fringes. The third thing is the whole also, I'm talking about the new city development. Now you have a museum city in Chandigarh, where if you see the debate between Nehru and Corbusier, so Nehru was very obfuscated, he said Corbusier, remember, don't turn into a ghost city, because very poor people are migrated from West Pakistan, so just ensure that people are able to buy houses. So therefore you find brick walls outside, you don't find drain pipes, you hardly find any use of steam, because that would have escalated the cost. Now one court in Chandigarh is 20 CR, so that goes. But then post 90s, I don't know, it's difficult. But instead of your primary health centers, you have super specialty hospital in Gurgaon. It's a post 90s. So instead of a playground or a park, you have a large gymnasium or sleepwalk kind thing where you have to pay 2,500 bucks every month. So this whole concept of city planning was of course recognition factor, but it was also leading to massive marginalization of the working people. And the working people lost their capacity because A, the whole process of production changed, but B, I think also because the working class was also limited to some economic demands. They couldn't imagine that the city could be a factory. So retailing the right to why should I not plan the city? Same working class, I'm just one with a red flag, any number of working class organizations, they never imagined city to be a laboratory to experiment and like we had Paris Commune after Bismarck. That imagination, I think, was completely missing.
But so, for example, in a place like Nagapur, and there must be many more which have somewhat strong trade unions. Does one see this visible there? This kind of
this shows what I think when Mala and Rajesh is gone. So Rajesh rightly pointed out, so there has been some improvement. But that improvement has taken place very localized, and I won't say by default. Yes, it's not planned. So the trade union never brought this to their imagination that I can run this town better than any other one, a consultant coming from PwC or whatever. Maybe I can run this. So I think that are the contours, these are the contours that the organization will have to evolve if they have to reclaim their rights in the city.
I just wanted to mention one last thing. You just mentioned to me that, for example, where there is no ATM, can you just talk about it? And just put it in a bit of a larger context. I found that really interesting.
So the utilization, because I was teaching in SPA, so one of my groups, we used to take them for some field studies. So this we were doing on Muslim utilization in particular. And I don't know if there was a history partition there in the Sunday those days. But a very interesting thing will come, the financial exclusion also is one of the very important elements. For example, we find in these busties, you don't find a single ATM. It's not that they don't use ATM cards, of course they do. But so that's why I said the city planners, they do not think in those terms. So the ATMs are only.
There's no value.
There's no value, I put it from a sociological aspect or maybe from a different perspective. So that's why I say, And why I think this has happened is maybe there is some background stuff happening at the top, but at the lower level, despite we had Charles Correa, who was the first urban commission. We didn't have a urban commission after that, because until massive, this is a generation, this is a generation change that a new generation has come out. What about artificial intelligence? What about the gig workers, the new skilled workers that we're talking about? Because there is hardly participation in the process of city development, city making. So where you hear those voices, the spaces are gone. We have a structural mode, but that is too elitist. Like you have the resident welfare associations or the wards of ours don't take place at all. So I think the workers will have to imaginatively think to reclaim these spaces, to understand the nuances that bring back this agenda to the fore. That look, I'm not just for the factory. The city is my factory, and it is my my labor that produces phenomenal wealth or capital in the city that makes the city moving. And that's true. It's true throughout the globe. But unfortunately, as Rajesh was pointing out, because of various reasons, this still is like a far cry. We're not reached that stage yet. Yeah.
Madam, maybe we can end with you just talking a little bit about how, if at all, you feel your spectatorship, your viewers have changed because it's been 3 decades.
Yeah, well, yes and no, they have changed. There was a time when the trade union movement was very strong and was very powerful in that area, and therefore the numbers were certainly much more. I would agree, that's true. But over the years, I do see that there are many more women and children who come. And one of the reasons is that many of these houses, if I just take the last house which has gone up, what was 6 or 8 stories high, how it's standing there, I don't know. A lot of families of the workers have also come. So when the families have come, there are more women folk, more children. And many of these women, they work, again the point that you were talking about, that you need such spaces, they go and work in the outlying areas, and what even Rajesh was saying, they have to go and work as domestic help. In the morning you can see scores of women, crossing the railway line and going to the nearby areas, and from many of these places, whether it's Saibabad or Maharajpur or Jandapur, all these places. So there has been a change, yes. What has also been a change is, and this is something that I know because we've been told this, that because the unions are also fragmented actually. So what's happened is there was a big union that was reshifted or closed down for whatever reason, and in that space many small units came up. And even though those small units are internally, they don't have unions there, because it's not as if the older workers came back there. It was a fresh crop of workers, so everything got reshuffled. So you have to start union work right from the beginning. And right now in these smaller units, it's the minimum wage which the government has allocated, not to talk of what is actually the demand given the price index and everything, even that is not met. So there are many of these things. So what happens is when there is less unionization, so audiences also, they come without that, I think, force meaning I'm talking in a positive way, with the energy that they come in, and then it is, something has been happening for a long time, let's go and see. That sort of a thing, what used to be, I want them to make that out, but people still come. There may be ups and downs in numbers. During the COVID, for example, the first year, of course, there were very little people, and naturally, we didn't even want too many people. But the second year, they were there in pretty good strength. Of course, we had made sanitation, requirements and all that. But what I'm saying is that the numbers, it's not so much the numbers that are important, but the profile of people. I think that has also definitely changed. There are many more shops, there are many more women, there are many more smaller jobs that are happening apart from typical, industrialized factory. It's not entirely industrial workforce, which used to be the case earlier.
Right.
Absolutely.
So which would explain why there was what you're saying as a greater force to come and see the work, because it's
Because they were far more cohesive, and they were kind of unionized.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? I think we're going to close now. Doesn't look like it. Anyway, thank you so much. Thanks
I'm
so
sorry
much.
you had to go because you had to catch
Yes,
a train.
yes. And thank you all for staying. Thanks
you.
a lot.
No, thank you, Zulekha, and thank you all.